famed author Clive Cussler.
The hero, Dirk Pitt.
You want to hear the president's latest brainstorm? He's got to be stopped, he said grimly. Oates correctly pegged Edgley. Mr. Brogan has filled me in.
Deep 6. Episode 6. Atonal Cloud Farts.
Are you seeing anything good on TV lately? Any recommendations?
Watched a bit more Taskmaster. I've watched a bit more American Ninja Warrior. I have all this stuff saved up to watch. I need time. We're finally at a weekend where I'm not going camping, so.
Yeah, I encourage you to bask in the laziness and the life-sucking joy of watching just Netflix and being like a beached whale.
I saw Longlegs in theater, and I'm seeing the new Alien in theaters this Friday.
There's a new Alien. That's good to know. I had no idea. How was Longlegs?
Longlegs was advertised as like the scariest movie of the decade, and I was not scared even remotely once. It looked cool. Like it was like a really tense, weird, actually more when something involves like a satanic cult and a serial killer. You think it's just like regular people. There's actually a lot more Satan in this movie than you would expect. But it wasn't scary. It was like,
well,
it was done and I was like, oh well, I guess it was pretty good.
Thanks, Satan.
It's 13, actually.
Got it.
I was hyped up for the scariest movie of the decade, and it was just a pretty good, weird movie.
It's also an enjoyable night out. A pretty good, weird movie. Every time I see a Nicolas Cage movie, that's what I'm signing up for, so.
Nicolas Cage was the best part for being in this movie for like 5 total minutes.
Oh, he was in it? Okay. I didn't know he was in it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. He's not in any of the ads, which is the best part.
Oh, a secret Nicolas Cage? I might have to give this a shot then.
So he's advertised as being in it, and he's one of the executive producers, and he's very conspicuously not in any of the advertising. Even for Nicolas Cage, he's weird in this.
He said in an interview lately that he likes horror because it's the most surreal. You could be absurd, and it gives you more latitude as a performer in doing really out there performances. Horror gives you that leeway where no other genre really does that for you.
Yeah, like back to back almost. He did Willy's Wonderland, Mandy, Pig, and this.
Pig was a weird one.
He's having a blast now that he's not paying off the government anymore.
Pig was a weird one. I told Jay, this is an award-winning movie. We'll like it. It's a grown-up movie. It's not a shoot-'em-up. We're going to sit down and we're going to watch an award-winning grown-up movie. Not with Marvel characters. No Spider-Man swinging through. We sat through that whole thing. Why? Why did this get made? Okay.
Have you seen Mandy yet?
I haven't seen Mandy. He still owes me for one of our first dates. He took me to see a double feature of The Deer Hunter and Papillon. That was a long date.
Romance.
He was doing some kind of test. I don't know what for. Or maybe he just wanted to put the PTSD, a base layer down early. I'm not sure.
You're still here, so you passed?
Yeah. But I get to make him watch anything now.
Excellent.
And that brings us, listeners, everyone, hi.
Hi.
Oh, a bit of behind-the-scenes stuff. Scott Brook emailed me, and I sent you the thing. That's so exciting. I didn't know you didn't narrate your books at all. So less exciting for you entirely.
No, because I thought of a awesome way to sort of work that in, which was when you first said that the narrator actually got back to us and said like he would like to appear in our show. Oh shit, I might have to interview the person I have now spent 50 episodes occasionally making fun of.
Yes, I know.
Until I discovered I've been listening to like an older audiobook series, not the current like Audible special editions. Oh, thank goodness.
That explains so much. Because even when I've listened to audiobook supplements, and I've said, like, this guy says Ohio, like I've never heard before, like, oh, it was all just tonal noises, like cloud farting. Ooh, like it wasn't Ohio. It was just a series of noises. And you had no idea what I was talking about. That makes sense if there was 2 different versions of the audiobook.
Oh yeah, there's like 6 different complete series of audiobooks for Cussler, for Ludlum, for Michael Crichton, for all these.
But anyway, listeners, we've got Scott Brick. Sometime in the future, we have to work out the P's and Q's. Someday soon, we'll all get together and be on the same podcast. Us and the illustrious Scott Brick, who has done so much voice work. He's so talented.
I have listened now to a few of his interviews yesterday. He's funny. He has a great voice. I've listened to a bunch of the 5-minute samples of his audiobooks on Audible because they have 5 minutes for free to get you hooked.
Yes, but like drug dealers. Everyone has learned from drug dealers in the 80s.
The first one's free.
Is that what you're not thinking whenever you get a free sample?
Oh, yeah. That's how they get you.
The first one's always free. That has made an indelible mark on us. The war on drugs, the first one's always free. I'm glad you've heard some of his voice. I wonder if he loves Clive Cussler or hates him, or how he feels emotionally about the things he has to read hours upon hours of. I can't wait to nail him down on that.
I figured that would definitely be a focus because I didn't hear him mention Cussler once in any of the interviews. Considering he's done possibly all of the Cusslers for Audible, he has very likely read a lot more Cussler than you and I have.
I know.
have some fascinating questions. How did you survive?
He's like been immersed, like he was learning a second language at a very fancy school. Like he was deeply immersed. Like, kid, you don't know Greek yet, but at the end of the summer, you will know Greek. He's done that multiple times with Dirk Pitt.
You have been Dirk Pitt for hundreds of hours. How are you doing? Do you need to talk to someone?
What is your therapist like, Mr. Brick? Do you have to do voiceover work to explain what you do in the therapist office, or is that triggering? Don't make me bark like a dog.
That'll be so wild.
I wanted to talk to you first about it, and then I was going to email him later today, and then I'm going to fix the tractor.
Sweet. That's so American.
My tractor is an Arians brand, so deeply American. I was uncomfortable buying it, but it's another term for Husqvarna.
I was going to say, do you want to repronounce that, or what?
It was the name of a guy. So, like, it was perfectly innocent. I was very uncomfortable, but it was a very cheap tractor.
We're the Cussler Hustlers. Hey.
Hey, everyone, this is Cussler Hustlers. I'm Nancy. Over there's Topper. And we're on chapter 57.
Wait, what?
Of Deep Six.
We ended last one on 53 because you brought up the tipsy...
Yes, I'm skipping ahead.
Dirk and Al cross-dressing as a married couple, and I didn't know if you were messing with me or not.
I wasn't going to let you know.
No, it turns out you were right.
Let me go back in time here.
All things considered, it was less problematic than I expected.
It really was. It was just an opportunity to use... It was a convenience that in what they had on hand for disguise, and who's going to interrupt an ugly married couple. You see those all the time. They're a dime a dozen.
Certainly not the Russians. They'd just be like, all the Americans are like this, my goodness. Dirk and Al sneak onto the Leonid Andreev cruise ship. They're on the Gorky deck, and they're undercover as the Grubers, a couple of hicks from Sioux Falls.
Yes, they're loud and tacky, kind of like the hillbillies of Beverly Hills. I'm just imagining Al having his wig askew and his lipstick a bit smeared, which is very troubling. But that's not written down. That's just me adding to the flavor of the story.
I was going to say, the way the audiobook guy does the voice for Dirk, my first thought was Eddie from the National Lampoon's movies.
That's something, ain't it? She falls in a well, eyes go across. She gets kicked by a mule, they go back to normal. I don't know.
Real Cousin Eddie vibes.
Have you ever seen the National Lampoon movies? Chevy Chase always made me sad.
Why sad?
I don't know. He was always like tall and loud. But something imprinted on me when I was young, and I saw like Caddyshack, and I was just, he's frightening.
He was like, at all times, maximum obnoxious, but maximum well-meaning. It's a very weird sort of niche to carve yourself in Hollywood.
Yes, and looking back on it, he was an oddly handsome guy, but like only for the 70s. That he was perfect. Like he was encapsulating 70s handsome.
And Fletch.
Yes, and
old SNL, yeah.
stripy socks that are pulled up to your knees.
And then he got the dad roles.
And now he's a horribly broken man.
Seems to be. Anyway, Al and Dirk are searching the ship.
Yes. I've lost my page, my notes, because I was fiddling with them, so I was trying to be cool. I can't. I have to be awkward.
I'll vamp for time. I'll vamp. I'm vamping. Al checks out Lauren's room and it's been scrubbed clean, but he smells perfume, while Dirk checks out below decks and grabs some coveralls and does some snooping around.
Al is like, there's a sense of a woman. He's Al Pacino just a few decades early, and though her room is scrubbed, he's like, her perfume. I don't know the name of it, but it smells like Lauren. She's been in the room. That's all the certainty he needs. The burden of proof for these guys, I'm glad they don't need to get warrants.
And even when he's back with Dirk and he double checks, he asks Dirk, what's Lauren's perfume? And Dirk's like, I have no idea, some kind of French flower. And Al's like, ha, that's the one.
Yeah.
Confirmation. And also in this scene, Al points out like 3 times, so you know Lauren could be dead, right? And Dirk's like, no, she's alive and we'll find her. And Al's like, yeah, but you know there's a chance Lauren's dead, right? You got to prepare yourself for Lauren being dead. Lauren could, like, Al won't let this go.
Think he's being well-meaning, or he's like, just curious, and he's like, what can happen? What if he never thought this thought? Let me put this down.
To prep Dirk for the worst, and Dirk's just like, no.
Yes, Dirk is preternaturally inclined to believe. Unlike his friend we met for a few minutes in Chapter 1, whose death he's been avenging this whole time, lest we forget. And I have forgotten her name, everything.
EPA lady.
I just remember she was around 40-something, and we'll never hear her name uttered again. But this is a vengeance book in her honor.
Mm-hmm. She comes back for 1 sentence in like 5 chapters.
Unlike her, Lauren, he's got the connection. He understands the universe will be different without her. The vibe is still in check. So they separate and toss the ship.
And they're on a tight schedule because by this time tomorrow, they'll be near communist Russian Cuba, where Lauren might get offloaded and they'll never see her again.
Yes, and they find the Speaker of the House, Moran, and Senator Larimer, and they all get into, I couldn't tell if it was Lauren's cabin or Lauren's containment room. They'll, like, pile in there like they're hiding from the KGB guy or the people tossing the ship.
You have skipped 1.5 chapters here.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
So, chapter 54 is when the president goes on TV to announce that America's new super awesome relationship with Russia and Russia's fabulous deals on American high-tech products and a new war on crime. And both parties freak out and join forces to try and take down the president.
I believe that could have happened pre-2001 or pre-Obama.
Yeah.
They 9/11 people did come together. If it happened in today's climate, though, it would be, we will not join forces. Every grifter would be finding their own angle, and democracy would crumble. It would be so easy. This plan would definitely work in today's day and age. Definitely. We wouldn't even get to chapter 3. Democracy would crumble before we even got through the first arc.
That also happens in a few chapters, but for right now, it's a bipartisan team working together. I just realized I didn't have my internet cable put in there. That'll probably fix any bandwidth issues I've been having.
Oh, and you don't have your trademarked microphone cozy.
Oh, no, not today.
Will be exclusive for our Patreon members whenever we get a Patreon.
The president calls in a 2,000-man task force of Marines and Special Forces to deploy around Washington. He clears out all the federal buildings and seals the entrances. He is Jan 6th-ing.
That would be madness.
Washington.
Just getting 2,000 people in a task force, okay, that's 2,000 people milling about without a explicit set of operations like and instructions. These are government employees. They're not going to do anything. It's just a coffee break until you give them a contract and there's a bidding war and somebody, prices this out.
No, apparently
This is just wasted taxpayer money.
He seals off Congress. He seals off the Senate. He kicks everybody out. The press arrives. They're interviewing all the senators and congressmen. And the part that I thought would make the most sense for right now, Americans watched it on TV and laughed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that can happen.
It's a weird chapter.
It's a weird chapter. I don't know if your country's had insurrection lately. Maybe you feel left out. I don't want to poke, any wounds.
Ours only involved semi-trucks in Ottawa.
Oh, that was so lame.
It really was.
January 6th, when they tried to storm the Capitol and there were fires and such. And I didn't realize that some of the news outlets had juiced up the fire scenes. This was a scandal here. I don't know if you've gotten it, but CNN and Fox News were embellishing the images so it looked like it was more on fire than it was.
I've recently been finding out how many photos like that are either embellished to add or remove things. Because there's listeners, right now, there is kind of a coup happening in Bangladesh. It's a weird thing. I believe the military forced a lot of the government out of the parliamentary offices, and there's rebels and weird stuff's happening in Bangladesh. I don't have all the details, but The Economist ran a big story on it, and their huge front page picture was all the rebels on top of the Parliament building waving the flags. And The Economist edited out all the Palestine flags. Just those ones.
Okay. That's really messing with reality.
That's weird.
There was a police department that picked up a young black man who had a lot of face tattoos. But besides the face tattoos, which is like saying besides everything, he fit the description of somebody who knocked over a liquor store. So they were like, oh yeah, he's perfect. He's wearing the same outfit. He's got the same build, same haircut, except he's got face tattoos, both sides. So they just took his mugshot, erased the face tattoos, and like, is this your guy?
Holy shit.
As if somebody who's going to point out, the person who knocked over, the first thing you're going to mention is, oh no, the guy had face tattoos, both sides. That's going to be the number one thing. You're going to say he's got glasses, unusual things first.
Yeah.
A cane, the dude wore a cape, outliers.
Once again, we're only finding uses for AI that suck and shouldn't exist.
You are right about that. Lucky Clive Cussler, he got to live in a world before AI was a real thing, though he did foresee notes of it. He was a spooky old fellow. But going back to channel, yes, laughing on TV is entirely appropriate, I think. That's a good measure of the U.S., laughing about it on TV. We're certainly not going to get out and do anything.
Look what those clowns in Washington are doing. The army has arrived. That's weird.
Looks like those clowns in Congress did it again. What a bunch of clowns.
How's he keep up with the news like that?
In the 80s, we were pretty close and still of the mind, just because you got orders doesn't mean you obey them. That was still thick in the zeitgeist. So I'd like to think back then people would, if they'd gotten bizarre orders, would have questioned them.
Mm-hmm.
But that might be the Pollyanna in me. People do what they have to do to get their paycheck. They do what they're told. And I don't know if I would do any better. I wouldn't know to question, why are we closing this building today? Maybe they have to clean it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel this book is where Clive got sort of too big into the international geopolitics and needs to haul it back a little bit on future installments. Although looking at the synopses for the next few books, no, he did not.
What I do love about this is the personal hell that he's written for Dan Fawcett. Dan Fawcett's in the other room watching the president do this stuff, and he's like losing his mind. He's like, you can't do that. And the president's like, yada, yada, yes, I can.
Yeah, Fawcett is going crazy for like the next 4 or 5 chapters, and Oates keeps threatening to quit, and we're like, no, we're going to try one more thing. Doesn't work. The president does something even crazier. Oates is like, that's it, I'm quitting this time. I'm like, no, hold on.
And there's a whole story here that's really fascinating. Like, there's this guy who had really progressive views, who got into the White House, who had ideas to solve poverty and make inroads for equality, and his brain has been hijacked. There's a tragedy happening to this man.
Yeah.
He will never be the same again. His life's dream has been cut out from underneath him through no fault of his own. It is a great tragedy happening, and we're just going to ignore that.
The additional irony, which I was amused by, was this guy got into the office of the president. He has plans to deal with poverty, deal with inequality. He was going to basically use free food to try and help out Eastern Europe. Nowadays, he would be a communist. Everybody on the news would be calling this guy a far-left radical communist. But in this book, no, the communists have to take over his brain to actually make him do things they think will benefit communists. Even the communists aren't communist.
That is a strange but true thing you've pointed out.
The Russians are just evil and have plots and just don't look into, anything else that was happening.
Yes, the only plot is evil.
Yeah.
If the plan isn't evil, they're a bad guy.
And only Dirk Pitt can stop the Russians. Dirk Pitt and Rocky.
You have the feeling that for the Russians, there's only henchmen high?
Yeah, there's henchmen and overlords. That's...
Oh, yes.
The two classes.
That Russia, Oates, and Brogan are fleshing out possible KGB mind control scenarios. It's finally dawning on them that this could be what's happening to the president.
Yeah, and they contact their scientists because they had people spying on Lugovoy's scientists. So there were American scientists trying to recreate this batshit mind control stuff. And they're like, well, it's obviously science fiction. It'll never work. But just in case, we should try it.
And I'm wondering if Xerox was out yet. Because if I was Mercier or Dan Fawcett and I had to explain over and over again what was happening to the president, Xerox was out. It was out in the 60s. I would have to type that out, make a few copies. Because I'm gonna get exhausted. This is a very involved plot here.
And there are several scenes where, later on, Pitt meets back up with Sandecker, or Pitt meets up with Oates and Emmett and Brogan and Mercier, or somebody meets up with someone.
Every time Oates and Brogan and Mercier meet somebody, they meet Oscar Lucas, they meet the CIA guys, they have to download them with all of this. It's just so much easier. Here's a folder.
They basically paused to
It's a time saver. I'll read it at once.
They paused to recap the book, everything that's happened up until now, because the reader is probably confused.
Yes, it is a good sort amount for us.
Chapter 55, Lauren is sweating to death in her prison cell.
Yes, a tiny windowless room. And Suryev keeps telling her she's going to be dumped overboard. He's monologuing a bit, yada yada. Dirk comes in and strangles him.
You yada over a lot, but we might have to put censor tags and trigger warnings over what we've yada yada over here.
Okay, let's go back.
This scene goes south several ways. So he keeps monologuing and she's like, "Get bent, you pinko."
Yes, he's like, "You capitalist slime." The regular back and forth that this happens in every Dirk Pitt book when there's a communist. There's the capitalist slime, pinko commie, insult fest, which is always kind of lame. They never hit the heights of a yo mama insult fest.
Up until now, I wasn't sure if we were supposed to see Suvorov as, is he actually a good Russian? Because he's sure, he did the weird backstabbing and sabotaged the whole brainwashing program, but he did get Larimer and Moran out. He told them he was a friend. Up until now, he's sort of been playing both sides, it seems like.
Oh, sure has. And
then we get to this scene where he just starts arguing with Lauren and then says, and I quote, "I've always wanted to rape a high-ranking capitalist bitch."
I forgot about that.
And then Pitt kills him. Oh, that's how we're supposed to feel about Suvorov, and he's dead.
I guess once you get alone with a guy in a tiny, sweaty room,
you really see what he's made of.
I guess you do. And I felt like he was just away from his, like he was an RC card, not getting his commands. When he was cut off from the KGB, the record was spinning, but there was no needle, and the needle dropped when he got in touch with his high command again, and he was back into KGB mode.
Oh, right, I'm evil. Okay. I have evil things to do, excuse me.
And then we go back to chapter 56, Captain Pokovsky?
Pokovsky is what I got on my end.
Pokovsky. I was having a lot of fun looking at that name today.
He doesn't matter, he's the captain.
P-O-K-O-F-S-K-Y. I was like, oh, that's a fun name. He's learned the prisoners have escaped. He goes search the ship again. And this is where I jump the gun. Al and Pitt find the senators and Lauren, and they'll go back and they hide in a little shower.
Yeah, they do the scene from The Fifth Element.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever seen The Fifth Element?
I have seen The Fifth Element. My niece is named after the main character of The Fifth Element, Lilu.
I was going to say Corbin Dallas? Lilu, okay. Yeah, they recreate the scene where they get Al, Larimer, Moran, and Lauren in the shower because they have I was going to say the cast and crew. They have the crew going room to room, checking the sprinkler system and looking for the escaped prisoners.
think it's also something from Duck Feathers, which is not Laurel and Hardy. It's who are the people that did Duck Soup?
Oh, the Marx Brothers.
Yes, I think it's a Marx Brothers thing from a play called Duck Feathers, where everybody is in the ship in the shower.
I know Duck Soup. I don't know Duck Feathers.
Throwing a deep cut down. I've never seen it. It's something I studied for in like a film class. I have not seen this. I have seen pictures of stills that I've had to identify.
Just before this scene, Pitt is heading back to his room to check on Larimer and Moran and Lauren, but he passes by a steward who is Asian, possibly Mongolian, but the steward recognizes Pitt, and he's just like shocked.
Yes, mouth agape. Now, did they use the word Asian?
Yes. Pitt noticed the steward was Asian, possibly Mongolian. We're just pulling countries out of hats here now.
My book threw down Oriental, like we were at a carpet bazaar, left and right.
It may have been Oriental, possibly Mongolian.
And as they're searching the ship again, a ship steward notices another Asian, Oriental, something doomy, but also othering, whatever slur you want to put in there. Go ahead. A ship steward notices someone planting a bomb, and then a few beats later, the bomb explodes.
Captain Bukovsky is talking to the head of Soviet intelligence in Cuba because they sent a boat over to get Larimer and Moran and Lauren, but they weren't there, so... Yeah,
he's needling them a bit.
The head of the KGB is like, man, you fucked this up so badly. And Bukovsky's like, no, it's all under control. Then the ship explodes.
Yeah, Bukovsky's like, I'm a ship captain. I'm not here to do spy stuff. You guys come and you do spy stuff, you mess up everything. And he's being really fussy with them. And they get back at him a little bit later.
And the ship explosion was a lot messier than I was expecting.
Yeah, because this is a passenger ship, so it's devastating. And very well written. You're feeling the tension and the excitement. And there's, a rescue mission here that's going to start.
There was one chunk I had to write down. The 200 people stretched out under the sun on deck were instantly incinerated by the tidal wave of burning oil. Those safe in the pool were fatally scorched when they came up for air. And there's people who are jumping in the water, but they're jumping into flaming oil that's floating on the water. Like, man, there's a lot of people dying really horribly in this scene.
Yes. They crackled and popped like popcorn.
Yeah.
And it's a quick death. What's the silver lining here? No burial costs.
Hooray, shark food.
Now, because they were all shoved in the shower, they're kind of blown apart like a party favor. So everyone is in Lauren's bathroom askew and more in pain than they started off as. And now I have to switch notebooks because I've got one.
They work out, Pitt, being the super genius, works out that was an explosion. And it's Al who rolls a quarter on the ground and realizes that the boat is sinking. So they wrap wet towels around their heads and start trying to escape. And they're passing through scenes of carnage. They're on the Gorky deck. They're on the bottom of the boat. And they're passing over people who have been trampled flat and broken bones and people who were on fire in their rooms.
These are civilians. These were people.
It's a cruise ship.
Traveling for work or pleasure. They were not all KGB military. They were just Joe Schmoes and Jane Schmoes and baby Schmoes.
A lot of innocent people die in this book.
Sacrifice left to be made.
The death toll for the last few books has been maybe double digits. We are well into the triples on this one. We might be heading in for 1,000. Because don't forget, this thing started off with a nerve toxin leak that wiped out several boats.
Yes, that was 1 million years ago.
This started with nerve toxin, remember? Simpler times.
It started with nerve toxin on the other side of the planet. But don't worry.
in Alaska.
Yeah, we'll find a naked woman.
He has powers.
Out of nowhere, Pitt hears the crying of children. He rescues 2 young urchins, hapless as they are. And their mom is kind of sort of stuck in a room that she can't get out of. And he tells her, you're not going to fit. Strip everything off. Get your cosmetics or whatever goo you have. And she nods and understands what he's saying. And there was a great George Clooney, I can't believe it's not butter ad, that only aired in Europe. That it was very much the same. It was very sweet.
I have to look that up now.
It was a bit more of a romantic butter commercial as far as butter commercials go.
My wife loves I Can't Believe It's Not Butter more than is reasonable, just because we brought it once for camping because it's shelf stable. Margarine will melt really easily if you're somewhere warm, and butter will go rancid. I Can't Believe It's Not Butter, entirely immune to all of this, so it's great for camping. And at some point...
It's not food.
Well, yes. And at some point, we just began, like, tossing variations on the title back and forth, like, fuck me, that's butter, or spank my ass and call me butter. And we got so many of those. And now anytime anyone mentions butter around my wife...
Hear stuff like that.
Anytime anybody mentions butter around my wife, she'll get this look in her eye and just start rattling them off.
Your children cry in the dairy aisle.
My kids are old enough for that. Anyway, back to people on fire and rescuing children.
Anyway, we got a naked, lubed up lady. She's covered in grease.
We do.
The children are fine.
Oh, yeah.
It's like saving a dog out of nowhere. There's a mother and two children. Of course, she's got to save them. Of course, she's naked. And that all works out fine. It gets resolved very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The speed of plot on that little rescue mission there was just like, Clive, you just tossed that in there just to be you. And I love you for it.
Everyone's up on deck, but Dirk says that they should wait until the boat sinks a bit more before they jump overboard. So Lauren and Larimer and Moran and Al, I guess, are tossing deck chairs and floaties and anything they can into the water to help the people who are actually in the water and drowning.
Yes, Larimer is. I don't think Moran is. Larimer is kind of robust, and he's like, I'll grab these. And Pitt's like, don't hit anybody on the head. He's like, I can't. They could be a constituent.
Yeah, that's actually what I was getting to. Like, Larimer is like super into this, is super helpful. And eventually the boat gets down low enough. They all jump in the water, and they're floating around waiting to get rescued.
Now, did something happen between Larimer there and getting into the water? Because I hadn't...
Yeah.
Well, Lauren helps keep him afloat, but he's in much worse condition in the water.
Yeah, when the bomb went off, he got like a massive lump on his head, and he was unconscious for a little while. And up on deck, he was feeling better. And I guess from the exertion of everything, he had a heart attack in the water. And Lauren is trying to, like, keep him afloat, but it's pretty obvious he died.
Oh, so just...
Dirk asks, where's Moran? And Lauren's like, oh, he got on the helicopter. He's out of here. Yes,
the Marines or the Coast Guard said they only had one spot left, and Moran jumped on board the helicopter. And Dirk's like, oh, I'm going to strangle that son of a bitch. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of on the rescue team. They see what's happening, too.
Yeah. Who's that woman next to you?
They don't say, well, choose the broad because it's 1989, or the guy who's clearly maybe still alive or on his way to see the next world. Take the senator's body because you're going to want to take the bodies anyway.
I'm the Speaker of the House. I'm more important.
I don't think that would go over well. And I can't be certain that everyone knows what the Speaker of their House is if you stop the average man on the street.
Well, this isn't the average man who picks them up, though. That was like a Navy rescue chopper, either from Florida or Guantanamo Bay, because there is a naval base nearby.
Yes, but they regularly do, and this is not to denigrate the military. The military takes from all areas of the public. So you'll have very highly educated people and quite the opposite. But it is a broad swath that really does represent the cross-section of America. And that cross-section, it's a toss of a coin. I don't know if they're all equipped and understand the government structure. I hope they do. But people have different aptitudes across different fields. Just because they're in a helicopter.
I mean, I'm in Canada. I don't entirely know what the Speaker of the House is. I know they're pretty high up there.
Third in command, which I'm sure you've got from this.
Oh, right. Mike Johnson, the porn guy. Okay. I forgot.
Yes.
That's your Speaker of the House now.
That makes it sound like 3B in command. And Covenant Eyes is like the...
Oh, God, you know the name.
New Supreme Court. Yes. It's so creepy. For listeners in the future who don't know what Covenant Eyes is, it's not a safe click. Do what you will.
I describe it as an app that lets you watch the same porn as your family.
That's accurate and disturbing all at once.
My specialty, thank you.
Spot on, crystallizing.
Anyway, a boat swings by, and it's the steward on board that Dirk Pitt recognizes from the hallway. He's like, oh, good. Somebody from the crew has come by to rescue us.
Yeah, and that guy gets everyone on board. He gets Al on board, he gets Lauren on board.
He gets Lauren, and then he says, your meddling has cost Bougainville dearly, and he beats Pitt unconscious with an oar. Yes.
And yes. What is this, a Cadillac? Because Lauren doesn't hear word one of this.
Yeah.
How big is this rescue dinghy? But I'm assuming, okay, it's the Lincoln Navigator of dinghies, so it's enormous. But Al is there for the secret rescue. Nothing too flashy. He sees what happens, and he jumps overboard and sneakily saves Dirk Pitt.
Not quite jumps overboard. He does get a few ribs broken with the butt of a shotgun, and then he leaps overboard because he's like, I'll save you, and then he just gets like horribly clobbered and goes, I'll save you, and then jumps in to rescue Pitt.
Oh, yeah, doesn't he get like a kick in the shin too? He has an injured leg in this.
Probably. That's why Al's here, to get injured. And
some KGB operative named Overkov has picked up elsewhere on this seascape. Overkov has picked up the captain, and the captain's like, why did you save me from my watery grave? Which seems a bit ungrateful. And is this toxic masculinity? Can you, if everyone is off the ship, you can leave the ship. You don't have to go down.
I think it's more that Captain Bukovsky has realized that he has failed completely, because he says twice, like, he knows he's dead. He knows his life is forfeit. He's going to get taken back to Russia and tortured in the gulags.
Fair point. I would take the water, too.
Yeah. So he's like,
it's what you know.
I'm just going to drown. Goodbye, Bo, and jumps in the water.
And they're like, no, get him. But if you're determined, and they didn't have any good goalies on board that ship, it was Captain Overboard. He fills the call of the void, like we all want to.
Most Mondays.
Only Mondays, huh?
That's when you feel it the most, you know?
Sunday nights, I'm like, everyone go back to work, go back to school. One more person talks to me, asks me for a sandwich.
Get out of my house. That's also one of my wife's favorite sayings right now for dealing with the family. Is just, get out of my house. Go, do something. You're young. You're free.
Don't. I couldn't wait to get out of the house and do any number of things.
Mm-hmm.
My teenager's like, no, I have to stay home and study for this course material. It's summer. Go break some rules.
It's the opposite of my kids. My kids are like, no, I have to stay home. I just bought new DLC for The Sims.
Oh, my son is like that. There's Roblox talk aplenty.
Yeah.
And he thinks nobody could hear him. So, like, when he's looking up stuff he shouldn't be, he's like, I'm going to look up something bad. He's saying... Two very different children.
I remember
they're both wonderful and they're both brilliant.
The early days of Roblox, and I don't know if you guys had Club Penguin down there or if that was just more for Canada, but that was like a sort of a smaller scale, cutesy, cartoonish version of Roblox that was actually based out of Vancouver, so I think it was more Canadian than anything. It has a whole bunch of games in it. You have your little penguin dude, you go from game to game, you do stuff, it's fun. And in theory, it's monitored, but I was just walking by one time and my youngest goes, hey, Dad, is that a bad word? And points at the screen, and someone's username was, I don't remember exactly what the username was, but it was like several inappropriate words put together.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, yes, that is a bad word. That really shouldn't be there. And I was very reassured when my 6-year-old went, that's inappropriate. There's kids in this game. I'm going to leave. And just super adultly handled that. I'm like, good for you. Okay. I can trust you a little bit more with the computer.
Those goody two. I was a kid like that. And Cussler, those are the devious ones. Those are the ones memorizing your password. Because you're...
A few years later, this is the kid with the mouth that even my wife is a little bit shocked by.
Good. It came full circle.
Oh, yeah. We've, when they've had friends over and they're playing video games, I'm like, Jesus, I never said stuff like that in my house when my parents weren't there because I was afraid they'd hear me.
It's shocking that I see children curse in front of their parents because it's such like, I would never.
Oh, yeah. My oldest, will still say heck and say it quieter than the other words. My younger two will swear.
Oh, that's horrible.
My youngest will swear profusely, but also knows when to do it and is also still the, super well-behaved goody two-shoes kid with just no language filters.
Language is a complex sea of different words to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Just go for it. Use them all. Every part of Buffalo, right?
Just know where's appropriate to use them.
Funeral parlors, daycares, homeless shelters. Yeah.
And back in this book, Dirk, or I guess Clive, doesn't know when to stop using certain words.
Oh boy, does he not. We get into this kind of cascade of slurs. I'm just trying to... uncomfortable Asian monikers.
Especially when we get a lot more Lee Tong coming up. But for right now, we're in chapter 59, which I thought I skipped a chapter.
Oh, my book was missing a page 247. Just I almost texted you during the week, what happens? Is this?
You still have the perfect record of only getting books with defects.
I think they print them out as I order them. They can't be on a shelf somewhere. I think it's just there's some machine that prints out books that aren't often requested.
Mm-hmm.
Third-tier junk books like this.
Yeah, the one-off presses.
Yeah, right next to, How to Yacht for the Blind.
So the president falls asleep in his office he's doing some studying and he's prepping his latest just batshit insane legislation. And he has a dream where he's in a strange room shouting, "I am Oscar Balcaya. I am not the president." And then he's drugged and forced to listen to tape recordings. Then he wakes up and he's back in his office. He's like, "Oh, that was weird."
Yes, we learned some more of the science here behind the mind control.
Science.
Yes. For our audio podcast listeners, and there's no other kind. Big sarcastic.
Look at me.
Big sarcastic quotes around the science here. Turns out the cerebral spinal fluid is like memory oil.
Yeah.
And if you change it, you contaminate a person with new memories, but then you can't really ever fully take that out. It's forever contaminated. It's like a radon or Radithor. What did they use in the 1920s to cure toothaches? Radon. The
asbestos? Arsenic.
No, Marie Curie. It glowed. Girls used it to paint clocks.
Oh, yeah, just like radium paint.
Yes, radium girls. Yes.
Yeah, Fawcett Oates and Emmett and Brogan, etc., etc. They're talking about how hard it is to get near the president, but they're having a meeting with Edgley, the scientist, and he's the scientist who is in charge of I guess not spying on Lugavoy, but going over all the stuff Lugavoy was apparently doing. And he explains to the audience exactly how it was done because they're spying on Lugavoy. And yeah, they transplanted memories using hippocampal fluid from some Russian guy into the president. So what they actually did to speed things up was they brainwashed this Oscar Balcaya for years possibly in Russia, and then extracted his brain juice and inserted that into the president.
Which is, Clive is leaving another colossally intimidating, to be sure, but a hell of a story there on the table. He's leaving money on the table. There is a very compelling narrative to be written there for this guy. Yeah. What happens to his family? Did he agree to this? Was this punishment for some unspeakable sin?
No. We're skipping over all that. I don't know if Oscar Balcaya makes a comeback at all, because I'm not quite at the end of the book. I really hope so, because there's some meat on this bone, as they say. They're setting up some interesting stuff. But what they eventually decide to do is they're going to use their supercomputers and they're going to hack the president's brain control signal so they can take control.
Yes, they're going to take the security footage and substitute their own B-roll. So much like if you were to say rob the Mona Lisa, you have the security surveillance footage of nothing happening, just the Mona Lisa alone in the room.
Yeah.
What they have to do now is take a baseline of the president's brainwaves, brain signals, brain bops. They need a good padding, a good amount of B-roll, so they can switch over to their feed and not not alert the Russians to their activities. and every dog in my neighborhood has started barking.
I'm not sure if we're going to get there because we're only rolling into chapter 60 now. It's already been an hour, so
Yes.
should we wrap up with chapter 60?
Let's wrap up with chapter 60. Go ahead.
All right. Pitt wakes up, kind of, and he has this dream that he's being rescued by Lauren, but then he wakes up fully and finds out he and Giordino are in a hospital in Guantanamo Bay, and there's no Lauren.
No, Lauren was taken on the boat, and she's listed as missing. And Al, when Al was telling Dirk this, he wouldn't meet his eye, because Al knows at least the last time he saw her, she was alive. This missing is baloney.
Yeah, because they know which boat it was, and like that boat said, yeah, we picked up like 75 survivors, and here they all are, but not Lauren.
And the boat was hilariously named the Chalamet.
Yeah. Or, according to the person reading this book, the Chalmette.
Oh, I read Chalamet.
I did write down
Chalamet.
I did write down Chalamet because I'm like, that's probably what it was. And it's owned.
I was first alerted to the existence of Timothy Chalamet because I have a teen girl who was once a tween, and he was a very gaunt de jour, gaunt, harmless boy de jour.
Mm-hmm.
And he's grown up to be very slender, hasn't lost any of the gauntness.
Rad boys are very popular right now.
He looks very portable. I could just strong breeze, take him away.
Like those satchel dogs.
And then we'd all be lost like Lauren on the Chalamet.
Lauren's hooking up with Chalamet, yes. Pitt starts yelling about the Asian steward. He must be the one who planted the...
Oh, and it's delightful.
He must be the one who planted the bomb because he recognized me. He used my name before he beat me over the head with an oar. And everyone's just like, no. That could have been any Asian steward.
Naturally. And even just the slurs and the uncomfortable mongoloid, just you named it before, just any...
Mm-hmm.
Clive was a man of his time. What excuse should we put out here? This was uncomfortable even in the 80s. There's no excuse.
It really was. But because Dirk rescued Larimer and Moran, even though Larimer died, Moran made it all the way back to Miami and then got all the way to Washington. So Moran's doing shit, but it was obvious that Dirk took part in the rescue. So now Dirk gets pulled into this whole scheme. So Admiral Sandecker and Secretary Oates tell Dirk Pitt to get back to Washington. We have to talk to you.
Well, now that Moran's back and he's alive, he's a scheming motherfucker, and he wants to be president very badly.
Mm-hmm.
Forget Oates. This guy, Oates, kind of lumbered. When we met him, we were like, oh, he's going to take the reins and be the president. Because power, who doesn't want it? But this Moran guy comes up from behind, and he's really the slime ball, the king slime ball here.
Ultra slime ball. He flies back. He immediately starts doing press conferences, talks about how he was just fishing in the Caribbean with Larimer. But then there was this disaster on a cruise ship, and we're heroes, actually. We saved hundreds of people, and I bravely leapt into the water so a child could take my place on the boat.
Yes, he really piled it on thick.
My God. He talks shit for 10 pages.
Hundreds of burning orcs.
I'm getting angry. I want to choke Moran at this point.
And sadly, he reports that Lauren is most likely dead as well. And the vice president also most likely dead. And because he's doing no press interviews, no one can nail him down on the details of how and why. Were you fishing over there? Why was everyone there?
Mm-hmm.
Weren't you all just on the presidential yacht? What was that ruckus about? Oh, there were 2 yachts? That's a big scandal on its own.
Yeah.
Just lots of stories that kind of just get put down that are getting glossed over by Moran right now.
And I think this book just had too many loose threads and moving parts. Clive is just fuck, why did I write so much stuff? I'm just going to pretend it never happened.
Stuff.
Moving on.
He's just putting it down.
Yeah. He's like, I have to get to the end of this book just as much as you do. So don't slow me down.
Golly, that's right.
Don't slow me down with plot threads.
Now too. And that's where we will leave.
He's a desperate man.
That's where we will leave everyone.
With everyone desperate to get to the end of this book. And yeah, we're going to start the next episode, hopefully the final episode, with Oates saying, Oates is watching Moran's interview, and he turns off the TV and says, and so Civil War II erupts.
Yes,
What a wacky finish we're going to have for this book.
The more he speaks, the more Wilford Brimley earnestness that comes through for Oates.
Yeah.
I could see who was our modern day Wilford Brimley? Who could play this? We don't have old people anymore.
Seth Rogen.
We just have the ultra. That's it. That's the oldest man in Hollywood, Seth Rogen.
I wasn't thinking oldest man in Hollywood. I was just thinking, like, who's just, like, some big, tired guy?
Yeah, he has it. He can do it. God, I wish I had his life. He looks like he's having fun.
Seth
He cracks the
Rogen.
code.
I think I've mentioned this before. Seth Rogen does the voice for all the automated announcements for the bus system in Toronto.
You might have said that, but it is something I've forgotten and delightful to learn all over again. That is making me smile.
Random voice acting gig to get.
That would drive me crazy. His voice is ubiquitous, but kind of, I would be like, oh, I know that, oh God, it would give me a brain aneurysm. I would love that. I would. The guy, Brian Cox, who was in the show Succession on HBO.
Oh, he rules, yes.
He does, and he's got a world-class voice. I want him. I don't really believe in like the Alexa products or whatever, but if it had his voice, I could be persuaded. Or I'm really hoping one day he lays down a track for GPS programs. So turn the fucking car.
Oh, either him or who was the guy? I can never remember his name. I'm looking it up. Ian McShane. If you want, if you want your Alexa swearing at you, Ian McShane is the way to go.
Boar's Head Ham. He did Boar's Head Ham ads too. His voice is fantastic. Did you watch Deadwood?
We started it like way back in the day. We started Deadwood and we just never got into it. We got hooked on something else.
I find you have to start with a particular episode with that show, and it's the one where he's fighting with the laundryman, and they are just saying the word cocksucker back and forth to each other. It is magnificent. Because they are saying it, it's the only word spoken for like 40 minutes, but they say it in different intonations as they're trying to clarify a topic.
Excellent.
And it was brilliant.
I don't believe we got to that one.
No, I started that one because it was like a study in just acting. Because it was one word, one room, a bazillion different meanings.
All right, guys, here's your script. He just hands out a Post-it note.
And like the scene direction had to be phone books. Because the way that they emoted it, the freaking it is fantasy. You'll find it.
I'm hoping the audio recorded because you got real glitchy. Ah, crap. We're both frozen. I think my storm is arriving, so I'm going to stop this. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Deep sex, and the after today. Deep sex, off to Guantanamo Bay. The president is full of communist brain juice. 100 people burned to death. Dirk Pitt got bonked on his head, and they were murmuring out of breath. What can we do? What can we do? Your Bougainvilles are coming for you. Deep sex, the government's going down. Deep sex, we should all get out of town. Just one more episode to go. Oh!